y'all know my history with this deer right here. I said, I hate to do it. These first 2 tournaments, I'm not going to make. And one, she was wanting to be in the stand so bad she couldn't stand it, but she was over there playing ball. And I knew in my heart that I was one the first year that I realized the deer was there. I knew he was there with him to the top. I never found him the first year. I found her good one, but I didn't find him.
He looked backwards, like to the back. He shook his horns. You saw the waterfall. I'm telling you, this is the most magical thing in the world.
Oh, man.
I was stunned. Oh, Lord. That is
well, guys, I got a good one for you tonight. I know I say that every week, but I mean it this week. Reili Brewer, Bowie County, Texas. Texas is that way. Killed a straight hammer. My buddy Randy Bergeron out of Port Barre, Louisiana, sent me this picture the other day at work. I almost fell out of my chair. This young lady, it's unbelievable how big this deer is. Some scores are, well, we've got 2 scores. One's 238, one's 244. Regardless what the score is, it's an amazing deer with an even better story. Now, she's going to be on here tonight talking with her dad, Ricky. You will hear Ricky talk about having to go through a gated check to get on the property. This is at a military base. All right. Yeah. There's a perimeter around. It's 12,000 acres. They have a perimeter fence. It's not high fence at all. I'm telling you, let me repeat this for you haters. It's not a high fence. It's a perimeter fence to keep ne'er-do-wells out and not to keep the deer in. Let's just clear that up right now. This is a great story. It's, I'm not even going to spoil it for you, okay? I want to tell you a little bit because it excites me, right? I love this daddy-daughter stuff. I got little girls of my own. I love it when a dad and a daughter can sit here and have a good time. They had a blast, and I know you guys will too. Let's head out to Bowie County right now. Man, this is a good group right here. I can already tell. Unreal deer that Reili Brewer killed the other day. Ricky and Reili here with us right now. Guys, thank y'all so much for taking time to come on tonight and talk with us about your deer. So let's get a background on y'all. Reili, tell me a little bit about you. How old you are, when you got in hunting, all that stuff.
So I'm 14. I'm from DeKalb, Texas. I'm a freshman. I go to DeKalb High School.
Mm-hmm.
I got into hunting when I was really little. I was like, he always took me with him everywhere.
Yeah, she killed her first deer at 7.
Okay.
And I mean, ever since then, I just loved hunting. I mean, I love the outdoors. I love fishing. I love everything.
Yeah. Ricky, was it hard to get her into it, or is she just one of those kids that kind of just took to it?
Well, her older brother used to go with me a lot, and she'd always want to go, and I wouldn't let her. First of all, she was too little at the time, and boy, she'd get mad as a hornet at the door, this and that, and come back. And as soon as she got old enough to start going, I started taking her, and from that point on, it has been, 100% all you got. So we run our mineral sites, on our other leases, running our cameras year round. If we was hunting some public land in Oklahoma a couple years ago. She didn't care for that too much. She wasn't about 11 or 12 at the time and walking up down the mountains over there. She didn't like that, but most little girls don't at that time. But
yeah.
She's been pretty hard.
Good. Well, hey, look, I got 2 of them, and I know exactly what you're talking about. 14, 15 years old. And young lady, trust me, I know it means a lot to your daddy that you go, because I would love for mine to go with me, but they got other interests. So that's kind of where we are right now. They'll go with me when it's time to take pictures and whatnot like that for Be Real. Yeah. But other than that, we just they look from afar, I suppose. So what's your go ahead.
The beginning of the year here, we do a lot of travel softball. We play softball year round, and this fall it started out probably September, and I told them, the other coaches that coach ball with me, I said, y'all know my history with this deer right here. I said, I hate to do it, but these first 2 tournaments I'm not gonna make. And boy, she was wanting to be in the stand so bad she couldn't stand it, but she was over there playing ball. And I knew in my heart that I was going to get a shot at this deer, but it didn't work out. So she was smiling every time I didn't come home with him. She knew that she'd get the longer we went in October, it was going to get better for her youth weekend. So
I know that's right. Golly. So Reili, do you do any type of archery hunting, or what all kind of hunting do you like to do?
Well, I crossbow hunt, but I've never actually experienced a compound bow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping to get one for Christmas, so I can start some compound shooting.
There you go. Hint, hint. Hint, hint, huh?
Yeah. Along with everything else.
I know that's right. Oh my! Well, hey man, Christmas is just right around the corner, Dad. I mean,
I know.
But I know with the softball, that probably kind of with softball and archery season being so early, that probably is a little bit of a conflict, isn't it?
It's going to be tougher. It's tough for me, and it's going to be real tough for her. Because that's what she's wanting to do is go to college and play softball. So we play a lot of it.
Well, I'll tell you this: I learned a long time ago, ain't no law against hunting with a bow during rifle season. So
Yeah, you are correct.
So you can get out there and get after it with that. So keep that in mind. All right, y'all ready? I'm ready to hear this, man. I've been chomping at the bit all day. So let's get into the story on the deer. Ricky, you said yesterday you had a little history. You alluded to it just earlier. You got a little history with him. Yes, I want to know all of it, brother. I want to know all of it. So give it to us.
Well, first off, I'm going to tell you, hunting on a military base like that right there, it's not like hunting anywhere else you would ever experience because due to safety reasons, and you got OSHA stuff, and all that stuff comes into play because if one person gets hurt, the whole program's ruined. So the safety precautions out there are super, super high. And out of 12,000 acres roughly, everything is broke down into sections. And every section out there has a hard boundary on it. Whether it's what we call forced access roads, gravel roads, a fence line, a paved road or whatever it may be. Buffer lines between buildings or something. But and the way it works is how our hunting out there works is you have to go check in at the hunt office, which is out there at the lakes. We have 2 lakes out there. You can one you can camp at. You can fish both of them, and you have to check in and check out. And the hunting spots are first come first serve unless you reserve them the Thursday prior to the weekend, and you have to hunt them at least 2. So we get down to it. The first weekend of bow season, you can only scout 2 days prior to bow season. You can't scout all year long, so you have to. It took me the first year out there. It took me all year trying to find this deer. I didn't kill one the first year that I realized the deer was there. I knew he was there, but hearing people talk. I never found him the first year. I found her a good one, but I didn't find him. Then the second year, I had to sit back and think. I said, you know what? Where are the big acorn flats out here? I had actually harvested a deer probably 12 years ago, 13 years ago. That had a little bit of the same genetics in him on some of his G2s that were forked, this and that. So I had to think back, I've hunted out here since I was a kid. Where would this deer likely be at? So I had to kind of go through a process of elimination here. And probably the third day of having my cameras out after the first scout weekend, I got the first picture of him. And when I got the picture of him that evening, it was about 7:27. I about had a stroke.
I bet
because
so.
he went from a 3.5-year-old deer from when I found it, or where I heard about him, to a 4.5-year-old deer when I first got pictures of him. And I've never seen a deer like that. Hunting in Oklahoma, I'd seen some 160, some 170 class deer, but I've never seen a 190 to a 200-inch deer on the hoof or get a picture of one. So from there, at that point forward, I had a game plan. I said, I'm fixing to get on this deer. And the first weekend of bow season in 2022, we went to a Halloween party, a birthday party the night before. I stayed out too late. And I got home probably 2 o'clock in the morning. Had to leave the house at about 4. I got in the stand. I got out of the stand at 1 o'clock to go get something to drink, something to eat, this and that. And he come through at 2 o'clock in the day, right by the stand, like 17 yards. And I was heartbroken. I didn't get pictures of him again for a while. So, running corn, scrape stuff, just doing all the basic things that you do, trying to find pinch points, this and that. And I could not get him patterned. So what I done was I had to sit back and think, and I talked to several of my buddies that killed big deer, and I was getting feedback from them. One of the guys that our daughters play softball now, I was bumping brains with him, trying to figure out, hey man, what would this deer do? What would you think this deer would do? You know, and I was trying to get all the feedback I could get, and trying to keep him quiet at the same time because I knew and stressing of somebody else finding him and getting on him. So, with that being said, the first weekend of bow season, passed us, and it didn't happen. I would get pictures of this deer in the evening times here and there. You know, couldn't pattern him. Sometimes they were 10 minutes after dark. Sometimes they were 30 minutes after dark. And then all that week, which was Monday through Thursday, he was there every evening, about 7:15, 7:30 every single evening. But hunting on government land on the depot, due to one of the safety concerns that they get up there, you have to be back to the hunt office and checked out of the area so they can have accountability of all the hunters by 7:30. And you know as well as I do, early season, 7:15, 7:30, sometimes 7:40. That first couple weeks right there, man, that is the prime time to be there. But I had to get out of the stand at 7 o'clock to make it back so I didn't get in trouble. So doing that, he'd hear me leave. He'd come in 10 or 15 minutes after I'd leave every single night from there on out, and I could not convince him to let me stay longer. And then I realized it's like, hey, these other guys in here are hunting this deer too, so they're not going to give me no advantage to try to get him. We went on probably cat and mouse for, I'm gonna say, 2.5 weeks, and I want to say it was probably the third week of October. It was a Saturday. Might have been, it was the weekend before youth, so it's like the 15th or through the 18th last year, if I want to cross something like that. I was sitting in an area that I had not got pictures of him, but I found a ton of big white oak acorns, a bunch of red oaks, a few overcut, a lot of scrapes. And I went in there and I hung a stand, and I wasn't seeing any doe out there, and it was slow hunting, man. It was slow hunting. I'm sitting here one day, it was about 10:15, 10:30ish, and I look to my left and I catch something moving through here, just creeping around me, skirting me, to the left. I had a southwest wind or a southeast wind is what you want, because anything north, how the place is laid out, you couldn't get on him. He bedded to the south of us. So I had a good wind on him, and I had some deer scent hanging on a scent wick, probably 35 yards in front of me, and I watched him come to the left of me, and he come out, and I seen his left side, and I was telling myself the whole time, I said, hey, there's your chance right here. So I stood up, I drawed on him, and it seemed like he stood behind a white oak tree for about 45 minutes. I know it wasn't that long. It was probably 30 seconds. And then he come across about a 3-foot little old ditch right there, and it looked like he stuck his neck out, and it looked like a giraffe neck. He looked like he stuck it out 5 foot. He stuck his nose up there to the daggum scent wick. He blowed, and he took off, and I never seen him again the rest of 2022 in the daylight. It was every single evening. Every single evening. I went on the rest of the year not knowing I wasn't going to see him. At this time, she was wanting to kill him, but she wasn't as hard at him as she was this year. So I had found I had actually found 2 pretty good bucks for her to harvest. And the youth weekend rolled around. It rained again last year, just like it did this year. She sat in it last year, but she didn't battle it out like she did this year. Her and her brother both, they said, no, we're done with this. So Sunday evening on youth season last year, they said they were done about 4 o'clock. So we got out of the stand, and through November's gun season, which our gun season on depot started last year, I want to say November the 4th. I took her out of school, and I asked her again. I said, hey, you want to go after this big deer? She said, no. She said, I want to go over here where I see a lot of deer at. So November the 4th morning, I took her and put her in an oak flat over here. She had a little buck come in there on her. I was sitting below her. She was sitting in an ambusher, and I was sitting below her on the ground. And I'm sitting here fiddle farting around. And she's looking there, and I don't know if she's trying to holler at me or trying to get my attention or whatever, this and that. And all of a sudden, she shoots, and I about had a stroke because I did not see that deer right there. And it was a 17-inch wide 11.
Golly.
And I seen it go and fall down, this and that, but I felt like somebody dropped a bomb in there on me because I didn't know what was going on when she shot. But that ended her buck season last year on the depot. So getting back to the big deer, at that point right there, I knew. I said, "Hey, she got her deer the first day of deer season out here for gut rifle." I said, "I'm fixing to get after this deer," and I bow hunted that joker all season last year. And then the last weekend of general rifle season last year, I carried her 20 gauge in there, and I shot a pretty decent 10 point, probably 140 inch, 130, 140 inch 10 point, working a scrape on the trying to catch a second rut. And that was the end of the year. Our season ended last year on Red River Army Depot on December the 18th. So I went all year long. I knew the deer made it. I knew nobody else had shot him. You know, I knew some guys knew about him last year. There wasn't about 5 of us that knew about him when 2022 season ended. So I went all summer, just chomping at the bit, waiting to see what this deer looked like that's coming up here. You know, I knew that if he didn't die of natural causes or, die of the mother deer fighting out there, because the buck to doe ratio in depot is about 2 to 1. So these deer out there travel, they fight, and I'm talking about have knockdown dragouts. And there's a lot of deer found over the years locked up and dead.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that if he made it through all that, then I was fixing to tackle this deer hard. I saved all of my dadgum annual leave, my vacation leave through this work year to have 5 weeks off during hunting season.
Goodness.
And with it, yes, sir. So with it being only being able to hunt Friday through Sunday until the first week of rifle season, I knew that I could take off every Friday and try to get on this deer. So that's what I'd done. When the scouting started, which is the first weekend prior to archery, I went right in there where I knew he was at last year. And that some rules had changed this year. Instead of being able to everybody run 10 or 15 cameras, this and that, they limit us to 3. And that right there leveled the playing field. Because if you can't run multiple cameras and try to find, just try to narrow it down somewhat, then it just makes trying to kill a mature deer even harder. And running 3 cameras, it made it tough. And, like I said earlier, you had to go to the hunt office and check out a track every time. And you can't leave out of that boundary until you go back and check out another area. And the average size tracks out there range at the smallest around 40 acres, and some of the bigger ones are about 110 acres apiece. And then you have to worry about if somebody else has it, or somebody else is in there checking it out, or vice versa, or somebody else has got a stand set up because you want to, try to do hunter ethics and all that good stuff. So all of my nerves were going, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? A lot of sleepless, worried days here and there. So the first weekend scout season, I check out this area, I go in there, put my stuff out, hang on. I already knew the tree. I already had it picked out from last year. I said, I know where I'm going, because he skirted me this time. I said, I know where I'm going. Told my buddy, when we had talked about it, he said, man, you're going to get him this year. I know it. You're going to get him. And had my stuff set up, and I went 4 or 5 days without getting a picture of him. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is going on? This dude has changed his home range. He's done something. He's not the same deer he was last year. He's doing something different. So I went to another area, still nothing. I'm thinking, crud. And then, like the 1 or 2 nights before archery opener, I finally got a picture of him. And when that was the first picture of him, that's, because I couldn't run velvet camera surveys to get velvet pics or growth pics or this and that. So I had no idea what this deer looked like. None. And when I seen him on there from the pictures last year, which I can send you, he exploded in mass. He lost a few kickers, but he exploded in mass and tiny. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. But I got his picture sitting in my office at work, talking to my employees in there, and my phone dinged, my Tacticam dinged, and I was like, I flipped through it right there, and I seen him, and man, I got loud. They were like, my goodness, and I showed them there. A couple of the guys that I hunt with do a lot of public land hunting with us, and man, they said, dude, said you have got to focus on this deer right here, no matter what it takes. Let them 140. 5-year-old deer go here and there. And they said, concentrate on this deer. And I told him, I said, from that point right there, I am not shooting another buck in here until I get him. I said, I'm going to make it or break it right here. If somebody else gets him, I'm going to cry a little bit, and throw a temper tantrum probably in my truck on the way home, and say, why did I do wrong, this and that. But, I wasn't going to show him out there that emotion. And so I got on him, and sat in the bow stand. Didn't happen. First day, I just knew it was going to happen. Didn't happen. I said, well, maybe the next day. And didn't happen. And I was thinking, crud, what is going on? And then I went about 3 or 4 days without getting him again. But the first 2 days of the archery season, I sat from daylight to dark, And I was talking to her mom and her, because they had a softball tournament this weekend. They were going to Malvern or somewhere like that playing softball, staying the night. And I was talking back and forth, seeing what was going on, trying to keep up to date with them. And they kept on asking me, have you seen this deer? I said, I ain't seen this deer. I don't know where he's at. And then come to find out that there's a couple people that knew he was there, and they were hunting close to me. And this deer done got smart, and he would hear the gravel on the roads, from the vehicles or whatever. And he'd just stay bedded up, wouldn't come out, or they'd cut him off and he'd change his course because everything's broke up into blocks. And, I was hunting on a creek right there, and then my thermal's going down the creek, this and that, and I'm sitting here thinking, something's got to give. I don't know what it is. Now, I videoed several different bucks through there, several doe through there, because I was on a white oak tree that was absolutely loaded, and I was just waiting for it to start falling, But about the second week of October, I had pictures of them in the evening time. So I hung her an ambusher stand in the same track, knowing that the next weekend she was going to get to come hunt with me out there with a crossbow. And I had him going to it. He was going to it. He was there like 6:58 one evening, 7:05 the next day. He did it for about 4 days in a row. I said, this girl's supposed to get a shot at this deer with a crossbow, about 30 yards. So I sat down there in my spot, and I put her in her little spot right there, probably 65 yards apart, where I could still see her through binoculars, but I couldn't talk to her. And I was just waiting on this dude to come through there, and he never did. We never seen him. She didn't see any deer. I didn't see any deer. And come to find out, somebody was hunting close to us again that day. So it comes down to the third weekend, and this deer absolutely ghosts us. Acorns are falling. I talked to the hunt coordinator, which he's my pretty good buddy. He lost pictures of him, and we're thinking, where did this deer go? Because last year he stayed in probably, I'm gonna say probably a 300 or 400 acre little area back there and never left it. He didn't chase doe out of it. He didn't do a whole lot of crazy things like a lot of deer do. And some of these deer you'd see over here this morning, and you may see them a mile over here that evening chasing the same doe. He did not do that last year. Every other deer out there you could rattle in. You may rattle this one buck in 3 or 4 times a morning. This buck right here, he didn't respond to rattling. I never rattled him in. And, he wouldn't respond to any kind of calling that we done. He was just his own dude there, stayed by himself. I think he knew the pressure was on him. So we didn't have him, lost him. So I text my buddies at work, and I'm sitting here talking to them. I was like, what do I do about this daggum deer? And they're saying, man, I'm telling them everything that I've done. I'm bumping opinions off them. I said, next weekend, drive your electric bike in there. Park over here and drive your electric bike. Instead of driving that diesel in there where he's hearing you. So I did that. I packed that daggum electric bike down there, and I rideed that sucker in there. I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him today. Get him today. Nothing. Didn't get no pictures of him. Nothing. I'm sitting there thinking, crap. So I had to make an adjustment there. I had to make a decision. I said, you know what, I'm not fixing to reserve anything this coming up weekend. I'm gonna wing it, and I'm fixing to move some stuff around. I'm fixing to find this deer again. Well, I went to the spot to where she would wind up killing this deer. We've never hunted this area, but I knew there was a good oak bottom in there. I said, this deer's got to be coming somewhere. And I had an idea where he was bedding at. There's a pine plantation close to us that's probably 100-foot tall pine trees, 120-foot tall pine trees. And they burn it every other year or every 4 or 5 years. And it's growed up in greenbrier, honeysuckle, American beautyberry, a bunch of privet and stuff. And it is thick and nasty except when you get on the creeks. So I said, you know what? This deer is bedding in here, but there's a gentleman that hunts that tract right there. It's a big tract. It's probably 120 acres, and he's in it quite a bit. But I in my mind, I figured he was hunting the wrong spot, but you can't ever tell about a big deer, and he slips up. You can't ever tell.
Mm-hmm.
So I reserved the tract that was south of it, and I set up in there for her the first Saturday of youth season. I said, this is where he bedded at last year. I knew where he bedded at, but you couldn't get over close enough to him because he'd hear you and he'd just lay down or bump out. And that's the last thing I want to do is bump him on somebody else. So, all that said, we got in there, we hung her and ambushed her in there, and she sat in it the first day. And the first morning we went in there, we didn't set in the stand. I take it back. We went in there and we rattled. I said, we're finna rattle this deer in. We're finna rattle him. Well, that didn't work. It come a flood, and it probably rained 5 inches that morning. It seemed like lightning and thunder. We seen, what did we see? 3 doe, 4 doe, and then we seen probably a 14, 15-inch wide 8-point we rattled in, but nothing what we was wanting.
Mm-hmm.
So that following evening, which was the 28th, sat there again, seen 1 doe.
Mm-hmm.
So that night we drove home. We're sitting here talking, this and that, and I thought long and hard. I said, I got to figure something out. So we went, and I put her in the area where I actually drawed on him last year in a whole different area. And that morning, we rattled in 4 different bucks that morning, with one of them probably being a 18-inch wide, probably 140, maybe a 150-inch 8-point. He was a solid deer. We call him Moose. He was actually like a 6.5-year-old buck, and he always used to run with this one. So we was thinking, oh my goodness, this may happen. And the other ones we rattled in were not near the caliber of him. And that morning, at about 8:15, 8:30, it blowed in a front, and the temperature dropped probably, I'm gonna guess, anywhere between 12 to 25 degrees. North wind, and it was howling, probably 20-mile-an-hour gusts. It was right. It was right. And I figured that we'd see a lot of deer. We didn't see nothing. We seen one more spot. So later that day, we went to lunch, met up with my buddy and his daughter that were up there hunting. And they asked, what are y'all going to do? And I said, we're going to go to this other spot over here because I got pictures of him the night prior at 2-something in the morning. And I had pictures of him in that area right there where she wound up killing him 5 days prior in the daylight, but it was raining. So I sat there and thought about it, and I knew it was going to rain that evening. I said, we're fixing to go in this other area right here. So I went up there, turned in all my stuff. I called her mom, and I said, hey, she left her cold weather gear, bring it to us. So she brought her bibs to us and stuff like this right here. Met her in town, got it, went back on base after we checked back through security and all. Got out there, got our new area, and at 2 o'clock, I told her, I said, hey, it's time to go. We got to stand at 2 o'clock. At 2:15, it started raining. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained. Well, I knew she was fixing to get soaking wet and cold, so I gave her my whole rain suit. I'm sitting there with a hoodie on and some dadgum Cabela's warm season hunting. And it is 47 degrees with a 20-mile-an-hour wind and it's raining, and I am freaking freezing. So at about 6:15-ish, 6:20-ish, I told her, I said, babe, I can't take it no more. I said, my teeth are chattering. I said, we've seen 1 4-point. I said, I got to go to the truck. And from that point forward, it all turns into her story. You know, but
Well,
I can tell you what I done. I chickened out and I packed my stuff up and I walked to the truck because I figured she was going to come behind me. I was going to go get the truck. We parked probably quarter mile from there, 500 yards maybe. As the crow flies. I said I'm gonna walk to the truck, get the truck. At least you can sit here a few more minutes while I go get the truck. Well, on the way back to the truck, right there, she texted me and said, "Hey, I'm staying till 6:40. It'll be dark about 6:40." I said, "Okay." So I went to the truck, got my wet clothes off, and I had some extra ones in there, and threw them on. They didn't match, this and that. My boots were wet, my hat was wet, everything about me was wet. And I had Dr. Pepper in there, a Christmas tree cupcake that was calling my name, and I knew in my heart, shoot, I would have never guessed what was fixing to happen was fixing to happen. And from that point forward, I was sitting there and I took a drink of that Coke, man. And I had my window cracked right there, and all of a sudden I heard a ka-tang. And I knew that we'd already talked about it. And I knew that it was either the big deer, which we called Old Monroe, or a 10 point that was in the area. That was probably 140, 150 inch 10 point. He was a mature deer. And I told her, I said, you shoot whichever one you want. I said, I'm not pushing you to wait for the big one. I said, you make the decision. We talked about that all weekend. Well, I grabbed my jacket, just casually walking down through there, not getting in no hurry. And I was sitting here thinking, well, if let's go down here and I'm going to see this 140 inch 10 point, And I knew in my heart that if she didn't kill that deer that day right there, that next weekend, this gentleman that hunted next to us was probably fixing to kill that deer. I knew
right,
it. I knew it in my
right,
heart. So
right.
I was getting ready to be happy and heartbroken at the same time because she was fixing to kill him, and I was probably fixing to get to lose ever getting to see him. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know
So,
what you mean.
man, I'm walking through there just trying to keep my phone dry because I'm wet as daggum beaver out there at fish. And I looked down at my phone. I had 3 missed calls. Well, the second time or the next time she calls me, she FaceTimed me. And I can't work FaceTime very good. My phone's wet, my screamer here, and all I could hear her doing is hollering and bawling and squalling, saying, I shot the big one, I shot the big one. From that point forward, I didn't let her get another word out of her mouth. I hung up on her and took off sprinting.
That's right.
I
That's
sprinted.
right.
I sprinted in a set of steel-toe cowboy boots for about 300 or 400 yards, and I cut through a corner of the property right there, trying to get to her, running through briars and everything. My legs look like I got run over by a lawnmower, and got there, and I asked her, "Where's he at?" And she pointed out there, and she said, "He's trying to get up." And she threw me that gun, and I looked over at him, and that joker was in a brush pile, and he was toast. He didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I walked up there to him, and you couldn't have got a better shot, And at this time, she was still trying to get down out of this tree, and I don't think she realized what had happened or what it was, And I started screaming right then and there. I was hollering, And she took off running over there, and on the way over, she broke down bawling and squalling.
Oh, I can
So,
imagine. I can imagine. So, Miss Reili,
Yes, sir.
let's pick your story up where your dad decides to get out of the stand. So he's getting out of the stand. Did you know at that point, had you made your mind up you wanted to sit, or were you just still trying to figure out what to do?
Oh, I was for sure gonna sit. I mean, it was cold and raining. It was perfect, like perfect the weather you could ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Like raining, the deer aren't like really gonna smell you. It's like perfect. You're gonna drown out your scent. I mean, you be still long enough, something's gonna walk out. So
Right.
I mean, I saw there was a little spike that walked up. Like we were like in that stand for maybe an hour. The rain lit up a little bit. A little spot came running through, and I was like, I'm going to see this deer today. I was like praying. I had to get off my little game on my phone. And I was like, I got to start praying. I was praying. I was like, Dear Lord, please let me get this deer today. And, I mean, he delivered.
Mm-hmm. So when he came in, so let's go, Dad's going out of sight. Did you see anything? Did you notice anything? Or how long do you think he'd been gone by the time the deer came in?
He was gone for maybe 15. minutes, but I was on my phone. I was texting him 6:40. I'm ready to go. I was like, I'm cold. It's like I'm ready. At 6:40, I'm like I was ready to go, but at 5 o'clock I was actually ready to go, but I was sticking it out because it was cold weather, and I was like, he's gonna come out, so I was like, I had to stick it out because prom time will be there.
Right.
So I was like, you can't miss prom time.
That's right. That's right.
So after that, I put my phone down, and there he was. He was walking that trail. He was grazing, eating acorns, and there was this big oak tree. And it's kind of like his story. He came out, his like right shoulder was on me, and he peeked out where all his right shoulder, like all behind it, I couldn't see. It was covered by that oak tree. He looked backwards, like to the back. He shook his horns. You saw the waterfall off. I'm telling you, it was the most magical thing in the world.
Oh, man.
I was stunned. Oh, Lord. That is when my nerves started getting shot, because I didn't realize what had came out, because I thought it was moose. But he turned around and I saw that water, and I was like, oh, Lord. I was like, the rack on this deer. And I was like, my scope was fogged up. So I was like having to wipe my scope off with my new hoodie I got. And I was like, oh, Lord. And I put it right on him. I was praying. I was like, his words stuck with me. It was like, he says, breathe and barely squeeze the trigger. And I was like, breathe and barely squeeze the trigger. I barely squeezed. Bam. He was like 35, 40 yards from me. And he ran about, the brush pile was like 15 yards from that spot where I shot him. And I was like, oh, Lord. And he ducked his head and he started walking real slow. And I was like, I hope this deer don't run off. I really hope he don't.
What she means by ducked his head, she shot him, and he ducked his head and walked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, heck.
And I always told her, when you heart shot one, most of the time they mule kick, like when you're archery hunting, this and that. And to me, when she told me that, she thought that she had missed,
Because he didn't mule kick, so I was like, oh, I missed.
And I couldn't believe he didn't run. She said he just walked in there and just fell over. She seen him fall over right there. You couldn't. How many times you walk in there and you see a deer of that caliber fall in front of you?
Yeah,
fall inside, fall over inside.
That is so crazy, man. So, what kind of rifle did you shoot him with? What caliber?
350 Legend.
Yeah, she shot him with I'd bought her. This is the first year. I didn't tell you this earlier, but you can only hunt with archery, shotgun with slug, or in this year 50 caliber. And this year they opened it up to straight wall cartridge under 2,300 feet per second. With, limitation. So I went and bought her a Savage Axis 350 Legend.
Okay,
and that's what she shot him with.
Outstanding. So, give us some. Do you remember the characteristics of the rack? How many points it had? All the measurements and stuff like that. Didn't your taxidermist do something for you?
Sir. Yes, sir. He our taxidermist scored it for us. The beams on the deer were 25 and 26 inches. Give or take the eights. I don't recall what the eights were on them. He had, I think, 5 7/8 bases or 6 7/8 bases, and he actually gained mass measurements the more he went on his circumferences. The further down his beam he went, he gained mass. And my taxidermist said, "Man," he said, "I've never in my life seen a deer gain mass going down the beams."
I've seen him maintain it. I don't think I've ever seen him get bigger. So that's impressive.
I think his third circumference was his biggest circumference.
I'll be dog. How about that? How many points did he have?
He has 31 total. And the taxidermist that scored him, he said, "Man," he said, "I don't know if these right here are supposed to score or not." He said, "I'm not going to score them." And we didn't score. We didn't score 4 of them.
Okay.
So there could be a little bit longer, a little bit higher number, a little bit lower number. I don't know. He had a 14.5 or a 14 7/8 inch G2 on one side and a 15 inch on the other side. He was 22 5/8 wide. Trying to think anything that just else that stood out on him. I don't. Oh, he from last year to this year. His I'm fixing to show you his horns in a second. His right side last year was forked, big forked. Like left side, he lost the fork this year.
Mm-hmm.
When the taxidermist was scoring him there, we were sitting there talking to him yesterday, and he's sitting there and he called one of his buddies over and they looked at him, got him there, and he was fixing to score him. He was going through him there. And I remember Reili was sitting there at the table close to him, and I'm standing up here talking, being nosy because he had a bunch of sheep in there and some moose, and a couple famous singers in there. Don't say their name, Reili. Had some deer in there, Our favorite Republican president had his son was in there, had a deer head in there, so she was in awe and I was in awe looking at it. And
Goodness.
I remember him. He casually just threw his tape down and sat back like this right here. Had his little pen and pad right there. He looked over at her. He said, "Young lady," he said, "I don't think that you know what you what you've done or what you got going." He said, "If we don't count none of the deductions alone, none of the extras on here alone, and just count him as a mainframe 10, he's a 192-inch mainframe 10 point.
Golly, that is crazy.
Yeah, 192-inch mainframe 10 point. And then he said, well, after we get this right here, he said, we're fixing to go to the big number right here. And he said, he reiterated several times. He said, I'm not a professional scorer. He said, we can get close,
Mm-hmm.
but this will give you an idea of what we got going right here. And I had sat down and figured him up, which I counted the point that the taxidermist did not count. With my a little higher, which I am by far a scorer by no means. And
Mm-hmm.
he sat there and tallied it up right there and didn't even say the number and turned it around and showed it to her. And I peeked over at it and it was 238 and an eighth.
Golly.
And from that point forward right there, it was all history. He said he caped everything out for us, done all the good stuff, and he said, I'm gonna let y'all take these horns with you, he said, because you're gonna need them more than we're gonna need them. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, it's gonna get to the point where you're gonna turn your phone off. You're just gonna be called so much,
Yep.
He told her, he said, enjoy it because this stuff will not happen again. There's not one way to go, and then 90% of the time you're going down.
Yeah.
So we was okay with that, and we talked about that from the get go. And I told her, I was more happy for her killing it than I think I was, because I got the adrenaline rush last year from drawing on him and seeing him run away. But the adrenaline rush I got from watching her shoot him and be screaming and bawling and squalling, it was on point. And then on the way home, from Terrell, Texas, I asked her, so what are we going to do now? She said, well, that's when she said, well, I want a boat for Christmas. And I'm sitting there thinking, my goodness, we done started buying Christmas, and I can't swing no bow right now, I said, we're going to have to wait, and I didn't tell her that, but she knows now we're going to have to wait for a little while. So, but, yeah, there's been one shed found on this deer.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't us that found him. One of the people found him. One of the workers out there found him. I don't know much about the shed. I had never got to see it personally. I do know that they said it was a giant shed from last year. But what we do have is we have the whole skull cap. If you'd like to see it,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell anything about it right there, but
Golly. Look at that, folks. Jeez, look at that. Crazy on the outside like that.
Give you an idea there.
Whoo-wee.
Over for you. Got his kickers on the back.
Yeah.
This side right here, last year, the tine right here was forked with the kicker, but from last year to this year, he put on tons of mass, see the mass he got there, mass he got there, just
dude,
all
that is
out. All out. We weighed his horns today, and they weighed 14.8 pounds.
I asked Trisha Lucius the other day how much hers weighed. She didn't know. She said, I never even thought to weigh them. And I've often wondered, a rack like that, like a 200-inch, 200 plus, I
Yeah.
score them all the time. I've never actually scaled them. Don't know how much they weigh. Almost, was it 50, right at around 15 pounds, you say?
Right at 15 pounds. Because, I mean, Northeast Texas up here, unless you're hunting on the Red River, where I'm the actual Red River part where all the soybean fields are and ag fields, our deer do not get big bodied like that. He weighed 202 pounds, I believe, on the hoof. And when we field dressed him, he weighed 106. And, that was a heavy deer. And we was curious, me and the hunt coordinator were curious. I said, man, how much them horns weigh on this deer? Because, I mean, that's a handful of bone,
Shoot, yeah, it is.
14.8 pounds is what they weigh.
Good night. So, Ricky, let me ask you a real quick question. Explain to me about the land. How does the hunting where y'all are, who all gets to hunt it, and how big is it, and all that?
All right, now I may get the who all gets to hunt it deal a little wrong because I'm not the rules person on this right here.
I got you.
Any of the active duty veterans, active duty military, I think you have to be a certain qualification veteran. I may be wrong. I know. I believe police officers get to, retired military gets to, government contractors get to hunt it, government civilian employees, as long as you're a Department of Defense or Army or any kind of military branch, your postal service people. I think that some teachers are allowed. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I think state employees can do it. Again, I'm not 100% sure.
I got you.
But right now, I think the last time I looked or checked or something like that, I think there was about 87 or 85, maybe 75 hunting permits sold. And
okay,
you're going to freak out when I tell you this, but we have about 12,000 acres of land out there, and it costs $60.
Good.
60.
And only 75 people take advantage of that?
Yes, sir. Because a lot of people don't like the hassle of having to go through security gates up there. If you have firearms, you have to have them registered on depot. A lot of people don't want to register firearms now. They have to be in cases. Archery equipment has to be in cases. You have to go out there and check in and check out of the hunt office every time you decide to move tracts of land. Different stand numbers is what we call them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to check out. And a lot of people don't like that, but in a hunter's aspect or a hunter's mind, I mean, that's what you want. The harder it is on other people to come out there, if you'll just put up with it, it makes it worthwhile, to be honest with you. I've hunted out there since I was a kid, off and on for several years, and it is you can get on some really good deer out there, especially from Texas.
Yeah.
So,
isn't that the truth?
I want to say our average, when a state biologist come in, I want to say our average age for deer harvested last year was 3.5, 4.5. They're trying to get the numbers up. Now there are a lot or several 4.5-year-old deer harvested, 5.5-year-old deer harvested, but a lot of people just don't have the willpower or they want to pass a 130-inch 2.5-year-old or 3-year-old to wait for a 150-inch 4.5 or 5-year-old. They see them deer return. I say, heck, that's a heck of a deer. I'm just shooting. And
yeah,
that's what a lot of them do.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a good. It's been good to us. It's been real good to her. She killed 13 point, 11 point, and a daggum 31 point. So,
Yeah. It don't happen every day like that. Okay, Reili? It don't happen every day like that. But look, I was thinking about this on the ride home. I went hunting this afternoon, and I like what your taxidermist said, because I was going to tell you the same thing. Soak it in. Soak every minute of this that you can. Okay, because it's special. It's very, very, and it's special in a lot of ways. And speaking from my dad, and I know Ricky, I know how you must feel. I can only imagine, she did it by herself. I mean, yeah, you were there. You did the scouting. You did this, that, and that, but you weren't there coaching. You'd left her in the stand. But all the preparations that you had put into her, with hunter safety and knowing how to aim, all the stuff, brother, it all showed up. And I know you busting with pride right now because that's a pressure situation.
I'm gonna tell you for the record, I got out of stand. I didn't have no rain gear on, and I was sitting on the ground below her again, and all the water that she had on her running down was running right down me. So I was a frozen popsicle, So it was tough on me, but hey, it is what it is. We didn't come prepared like we ought to, and maybe all of our unpreparedness worked out. But I'm gonna tell you, before it all ends, this and that. Today sitting there talking to the guys at work, and I don't know why it didn't dawn on me from Sunday, which we've been overwhelmed. I honestly think that this deer was bedded probably 100 yards from us. And I think he heard me get up and leave and go to my truck. And I think he thought it was safe to come out, and he slipped up, not thinking she was there, and she capitalized on it.
And when you was talking earlier, and you said that deer was as soon as you leave, he'd come out.
Sir.
First thing went through my mind is I'd had somebody take my pickup. And but y'all did exactly that scenario. So I mean, it worked out, man. I know you're until Sunday, you probably was just like, why couldn't I have gotten that deer that day?
Oh man!
And now you know why.
One of the gentlemen that worked for me, my actual lead in my shop, he said, man, he said, I can tell you now. He told me today, he said, last year, he said, man, he said, you was a dadgum nervous wreck all year long, and I thought I played it off pretty good, trying not to let people know where he was or what he was, like only a very few people knew that I knew where he was at, and I was hunting this deer, and he seen it all over my face, so yeah, I'm starting to stress again this year real bad.
I bet so. All right, guys. Well, look, we on 50 minutes, man. I just wanted to hear your story. I told them folks when we got started, I said, if we can get 20 or 30 minutes, we'd be good. Here we sitting at 50. And I love every bit of it, man. It felt like we ain't been going but about 30 minutes, man. This has been a good story for sure. So, y'all Reili, you got anything else you want to say?
Just enjoy it. I mean,
yeah.
Love the outdoors while you can. I mean, it doesn't happen forever.
That's right. Ricky, what else you got? You got anything else, baby?
Man, I don't. Hey, I appreciate you giving us an opportunity, get her story out there, and maybe she'll benefit from it, and maybe hey, help her out as much as she can. You know what I mean? Like I told her, I said, baby, I won't be able to top this one, so we won't be able to do this. I said, all we're going to shoot for now is some archery equipment and some mature bucks. I said, that's our goal, mature deer.
That's right.
Whether they're 130 or 230, as long as they're mature, hey, that's the name of the game.
That's it. Get you a bow and start stacking them up, young lady.
That's our goal. Between this softball, this and that, we're going to try to do a little bit of 3D shooting and try to get on some pigs. We are ate up with hogs over here at the house, so
yeah,
we can shoot them jokers and get some practice.
Shoot, yeah, man. Do that. Well, guys, I appreciate y'all taking time tonight.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.